Shalom Aleichem. We are learning the Sicha of Pirkei Avos, and it is magnificent and so much to discuss. So let's get right into it. There was a Farbrengen on Shabbos Achrei Kedoshim Yud Gimel Ir, the yard site of the Rebbe's brother, Rabbi Leib Tavshin Chavdalad. And the Rebbe starts off saying that, befitting the custom that we have, that on the Shabbos is that you learn Pirkei Avos, we explain the Mishnah Maseches Avos. So now we're going to explain the Mishnah of Chananya etc., which is a Mishnah through which you finish every parak in Maseches Avos, and when you learn for a yard site. And then the Rebbe went on to the Sicha to explain, after the Shakla V'Tarya, after all the discussion about the Bavadi Bartanur and the Rambam and Pirush Mishnah, then the Rebbe went to explain that because in the mitzvah is to bring into this world after Sapshut, then why is there so much division, right? That was the Sicha. And the Rebbe then said, that didn't make it into the edited version, it's not understood why Hashem added so many Torah mitzvahs to add reward. Even if one thing in Torah or mitzvah achas, you would keep it multiple times, you would get schar for multiple mitzvahs if I do the same mitzvah over and over. And especially by limud Torah. It's only one mitzvah, so what does it mean, ribui? In other words, someone that learns a lot because they have a lot of time, more than the friend who learns a little because they have a little time, is not fulfilling a different part of mitzvah's Torah. Unlike tzedakah, that there's one way of giving whatever the person needs, and the other person, give a little more, a little less, etc. But Talmud Torah, it's one obligation: give it to learn as much as you can. So the person that can learn 10 hours or 1 hour, they're both doing the mitzvah. And you can't answer Hebrew Torah means on things that make sense. That regardless, you would keep yourself busy learning, like shkatzim or masim, etc., like that you wouldn't eat. Because, as Tanya says in Perek Tazayin, even if you are a masmid, in other words, you're a studious person by nature, nevertheless, you love your body more nature. In other words, you won't give up on eating and drinking. So therefore, there's no inyan of dibui. Why? Because you have to command him even on these things so that he'll learn more than his nature. So you wouldn't learn on his nature, and you have to command him. So the point is, what does Hebrew Torah mean? Then the Rebbe went, when he spoke about that, the point of Torah mitzvahs is to bring into the world actus apshuta. The Rebbe went on to say, because Torah is one Torah that was given from one Eibishter to one nation, and its goal is to remove all the division and multiple division and Helen Behester, the covering over in this world, and to reveal actus apshuta. And then we asked, why is there ischalkus if our job is actus apshuta? And then the Rebbe went specifically and said like this: the point of mitzvahs is mitzvah l'shem safse v'chibur. So its point is to connect us with Hashem. So then, all you need for all the mitzvahs is just Kabbalah Salmach Shamayim, because that's the point, that there's a relationship. I accept your rulership. And because the yesod of all mitzvahs is Kabbalah Soil, which is equal in all mitzvahs, then mitzvahs itself should have been without division. Why is there so many gzeidas, Lashon Daven? And the answer is that's HaKadosh Baruch Hu Zakis as Yisrael, not only to be mevatel, to remove, but zikuk, to purify. And that's through multiple division within Torah mitzvahs, so that you could purify and elevate every detail. And that's how you accomplish Dir B'Tachtonim. And Rebbe went on to say, meaning, from the perspective of the general kavanah of Dir B'Tachtonim, there should be revelation of Hashem in this world, then you don't need so much division. The point is that there should be a lot of Torah mitzvahs, multiple times in the same part of Torah, in the same mitzvah, because you could still, farflates the welt, you could flood the world with Eibishter. But in order that it be a internal zikuch, not flooding, just overwhelming it, but from within, lezakis, then you need multiple parts of Torah mitzvahs, so that it goes into every part of the world. And like the mitzvah that writes in Shara Yichud, that it's not enough to just have a general hasbayin in this when you meditate about Hashem, but you need a specific hasbayin. They finished off the Sicha and said there's a difference between the way it's in Achdus Apshuta, the way it comes down in this world. And therefore, it's a different expression. One says Hashem Chafetz L'man Tzidkei, which refers to Tainug Atzmos, to Ratzak Kadosh Baruch Hu L'Zagis Es Yisrael. And then the second option is Yagdul Torah v'Yadir, which is dafka the way it comes from this world. Anyways, now interesting, the Rebbe had a very interesting postscript to the Sicha. And he started like this. He said the idea of Tidush, remember the Torah is divided into multiple things, Pshat and Tidush side, has become a very open pellets. It's, in other words, the boundaries have been broken. Everyone gives every Tidush they want, whether it's according to the truth or not. And they say, what do you mean? It says in our Rizal, that you can't shlug up, you can't take away a drush, because it's a drasha, I gave a drasha. So they think you could do whatever you want, you could say whatever you want, even k'dumas slavus, even crooked thinking. But the truth is, obviously, it's not like that. Because Tidush is a part of Torah. So it has to be mechuvan, it has to be tzimzach. Especially based on the fact that we know that the four halakim of Torah, Pshat, Remez, and Tidush side correspond to the four levels of Atzilus, Bli, Yitzir, Asiyah, and they come from one another. And if in Chelik HaTidush there's no Seder, Chas v'Shalom, we could then lead to Pshat of Torah. Just like the four worlds interconnect, so too the four levels of Torah interconnect. And if you're going to start abusing Tidush, it can abuse Pshat. And Pshat, that's a big issue because Pshat is Mesudar, it's exactly the way it has to be. And therefore you must say it's also in Tidush the same way. However, every part in Torah has its own principles and own rules. And the klalim that are in Pshat are not similar to the klalim of Tidush, or them as a say. So that's the Pshat. When Arizal says, Ein meshivin ala Tidush, he's not saying you can't ask any question. He's saying the kind of questions you would ask in Pshat, you can't ask by Tidush, because the questions and Tidutzim that are in Chelik Tidush are specifically for Tidush. But obviously, Tidush has to have a kavanah. Similar to where you find in Gematrias, there are certain kavanas, certain Gematrias that work out, and sometimes you have to add imakoil with the word, and two koilim. And so it seems like a joke, no, like a big deal. Gematria, this equals that, plus adding and plus adding. No. It's not that it doesn't work, and therefore we have to add imakoil, and then we add another koil. No, it's bediuk. And Rebbe says, humorous, there was once somebody who was drinking a lot of mashke before the prohibition, because this was right after the prohibition. The Rebbe said about not drinking more than four, no more than four. And he then ate a lot of mazaynas, and he said, lekach, cake, is the gematria of yash, which is yain sadaf, which is mashke. They asked him, it doesn't fit. So he says, he'll take more lekach. And if it doesn't fit still, he'll drink more mashkin, and so on, till the math equals up. So he says, that's not the way gematrias work. Everything is bediuk. And like it says in the Sefer Shem Munim, I'm mentioning Chassidus, that the reason why sometimes you have to add koilel together the gematrias, because the connection of the 2 points are not in the details, but they're the general concept, or not only from the details, but also from the general concept. And therefore you need ima koilel. And so to something you need double koilel, because the point is that's the general concept of the word. But that doesn't mean that every guy can now start saying, okay, it's a gematria with a koilel. It doesn't work that way. And also, not every time can you use koilel if it doesn't fit. If it doesn't fit. So, for example, about the Lamed Tes Malachas, it says arbaim chaser achas. So you don't say arbaim ima koilel. So to Sfir Saimer, you count 49 days, even though the pasuk says count 50 days. And similar to what the Zohar says, the Yitzias Mitzrayim is mentioned 50 times, even though you see in Torah it's mentioned 60 times. So he says, if gematrias weren't exact, then you could start giving answers, 40, but with the koilel, without the koilel. Sometimes it works. There's klolim, there's principles when you could say ma koilel, and sometimes not. And so too, Drush has its rules. Why am I saying this, said the Rebbe? Because I just explained the Mishnah that's HaKadosh Baruch Hu Zakas Yisrael, and because everything in Torah has to be mechuven, intentional, I was afraid to say a pshat that's different than the Rambam and the Rabbi Bartanura. I don't want to start up with them. So I looked for a source for my pirush. So that should be based on somebody who's entitled to say opinion of themselves. The Rebbe is talking with humility. That someone that could be comfortable to debate the Rambam and the Bartanura. So I found that the Mittel Rebbe explains in Teres Chaim the Maila, the thing that Torah Shabbat Peh has over Torah B'chsav, that's called Torah Sheba'al Peh is called Lechem in the Aretz. Just like Lechem in the Aretz adds strength in the intelligence. Therefore, a child cannot really call out to his father until he tastes food, because food actually helps your intelligence. So too, Torah Sheba'al Peh adds even in Chachmei Lo, which is Torah Sheb'chsav. So you see a mile of Torah Sheba'al Peh over Torah Sheb'chsav. And the Rebbe says all of that is based on this. There's a whole thing in Samach Vav, the Hemshech Samach Vav, that's based on this Nekuda of the Mittel Rebbe, etc. And so to the Sefer as Abba here says, David was combining Torah Shelamayla into Hashem. In other words, through learning in Torah Sheba'al Peh, he was able to accomplish an incredible aliyah in Torah Sheb'chsav. And he finishes the Pshat, Hashem Chavetz L'Matzili Yag L'Torah V'Yadir, that the ultimate desire of Hashem is that the Yedida should be in Torah Sheba'al Peh, because dafka, that's how you bring an aliyah Shelamayla. And that's Yagdil with a Yud, that literally, the Yud symbolizes Chachma. And Yud in the future. So that says, so now when you translate these words of Teres Chaim into a style of Avodah, that's what we said previously in the Mishnah. The idea of Zikuch, etc. I'm just bringing the same idea, but in the Eifin of Avodah. Otherwise, I wouldn't have the chutzpah, whatever, to start up with to disagree with the Rambam and the Bavadia Bar Tindura. Just thought that was a fascinating postscript, like what the Rebbe said after.